Hello, this is your hillbilly historian coming to you from the hills of East Tennessee and Appalachia, bringing you truth, justice, and the American way, common sense, reason, logic, all the things that make a man great. Not that liberal, left-wing, woke crap that the Democrat Party is trying to throw upon you. That idiocy from the left. That, if we can get them people who steal everything from our government out of the way, mankind could advance even greater. But no, the Democrat Party wants to steal everything the hardworking man puts up, builds up. But anyway, today I want to talk to you about a phenomenon we had in our country. A guy by the name of O.J. Simpson. Yeah, I want to talk about this murdering piece of crap, Negro from the Oakland slums who had some athletic skill and became famous and had a little bit of control over his behavior, and he was able to cross over the race barrier and become accepted by whites and became a great hero. Football hero, actor, advertiser, just a real likable, remember that little old lady in the airport said, "Go, OJ, go!" It was, she had a smile on her face, and if a little old lady's like you gotta be good. It's like if a dog likes you gotta be good. So anyway, here we go. OJ, who murdered his ex-wife and her new boyfriend, who was a waiter in a restaurant, and out there in California, where a lot of nut jobs live and work. But anyway, OJ murdered these people, and Cochran, the lawyer, they ended up playing the race card. They had an all-black jury, and there was always a big division between the blacks in Southern California and the police department and the legal system. The blacks always felt they were abused. The whites didn't like the way blacks were uppity and thought they should be treated equally along with whites. And the whites just did not have any respect at all for the black people, and they mistreated them. Look what they did to Rodney King. Now, I'm not saying Rodney King didn't deserve a beating. He was driving at excessive rates of speed through an area, endangering people's lives, and when they finally forced him off the road, they dragged him out of the car and they worked him over. Down south, young men used to think it was a joyride to get the law after you and outrun them. So when they'd finally catch them and pull them over, they'd drag them out of the car and beat them up. And they'd tell the judge, said, "Hey, he thought he could outrun us, and then when we stopped him, he thought he could whip us." So they'd work him over. So that was the way they kept that to a minimum back down south. And out in California, they were trying to let Rodney King know you don't behave this way. So they worked him over with their billy clubs, and of course, videos were getting popular, and somebody was there with a camera, and they filmed the whole thing, and it really made a lot of people mad. And then they tried the cops who beat Rodney King up, and they got a change of venue over into a white community, and they got a white jury, and the jury found them all not guilty, and that's when the blacks went absolutely crazy and burnt their own homes down, their businesses and their homes their own neighborhoods. What does that show how stupid they are? You know, burn your own neighborhood down. Why didn't they go over and burn that white neighborhood down where they found them guys not guilty? Because they're smart enough to know if they left their own neighborhood, they'd be shot on sight if they had Molotov cocktails in their hands. But hey, OJ, they were able to work it around to where they got some white jurors off that jury by lying about things they'd said and all that, and their behavior, till they had an all-black jury. They weaseled around till they got an all-black jury. And one of them juries said after the trial, said, hey, we found him not guilty. That was justice for Rodney King. And that was the motive behind them. You know, it only took them a few minutes in the courtroom or in the jury room to decide not guilty. And everybody was shocked that they were getting ready to go on trips and everything. And they called up and said, hey, we got a verdict. And it was not guilty. And every black in America cheered and every white hung their head in shame. But anyway, old Johnny Cochran, that black lawyer that knew how to play the race card, you know, they used Furman to get the race card into the trial. They weaseled around till they got the race card in there. And then when Johnny Cochran gave his summation, you know, they tricked that black guy on the prosecution team to let OJ try on those gloves. And those are isotonic gloves. They're hard to get on. They fit very snugly. So OJ put on an acting role where he couldn't get the gloves on. And he did. That was his best acting role he ever done. But he pulled it off. And then Johnny Cochran, you know, they claimed Furman planted the gloves and all this crap. And then when he summed up, he had a quotation. Johnny Cochran said, if the gloves don't fit, you've got to quit. Well, you know, I'm not a scholar on old black-white movies, but I have seen a few. I enjoy watching the old late 1930s when they first started using sound, the pre-code movies prior to 1930, 31, and then even the 1930s and 40s black and white movies, the criminal movies, the cowboy movies. I just love it because they really knew the difference between right and wrong. And then, you know, in the 60s, they had what they call the anti-hero come out, where the bad guy all of a sudden becomes the good guy. The guy that you sympathize with and all that crap, garbage, trying to turn our values upside down. That's what Hollywood was trying to do, destroy the values of the American family, knowing the difference between right and wrong, good and evil. But anyway, in one of these old black and white movies, way back, when old man John Barrymore was a big actor in Hollywood, and Clark Gable was playing a criminal in this movie, a gangster, and John Barrymore was a criminal attorney and was defending him in a trial. And supposedly, the guy that Clark Gable was playing, when he murdered this guy, he left his hat behind, which no good gangster would ever do, but that's what the prosecution had, was Clark Gable's hat. And John Barrymore, in a very dramatic moment in the courtroom, just like Johnny Cochran and OJ trying on them gloves, they had Clark Gable, John Barrymore had Clark Gable try on this hat. And it was just a little bitty hat that just barely fit on top of his head, up on top, like they did in comedy shows and early comedy movies and stuff, where they'd wear a little bitty hat. And this hat, even though it was a fedora, would not come down on Clark Gable's head. It would just wouldn't fit at all. It was just sit on top of his head. And of course, John Barrymore, when he summed up, "If the hat don't fit, you must quit. If the hat don't fit, you must quit." Just like Johnny Cochran said, "If the gloves don't fit, you must quit." Of course, he knew them blacks were going to quit O.J. anyway. He just had to give them more reason. And sure enough, they let that killer walk away scot-free. And there ain't no doubt in my mind he knifed them people to death. And dirty, evil time, O.J. He lost his cool over that white woman. And him coming from the ghetto in Oakland, he resorted to his jungle training and his jungle mentality, and let the Negro come out in him, the African Negro come out in him, his, he couldn't control his urge to murder her and her beau, her new beau, and it was a shame. He deprived his children of their mother and destroyed two families and murdering these two people who were loved by their families and devastated. But they went to court. They filed a civil case and won. O.J. had to go to Florida to be able to own a home. He can't take a home away from you in Florida. So he had to go to Florida to have a home and play golf in Florida. Whites turned their backs on him, and he turned to the blacks. Then he went to Las Vegas. The idiot carried a gun in there and robbed some people and stuff that he claimed belonged to him, and some of his souvenirs and stuff. And they tried him for that, and that judge, who was a white female judge, gave him practically life imprisonment. He was up in age at that time. She gave him 33 years. It was really devastating. And I think he finally got out. He got sick in there, and they finally let him come home to die. But hey, he was a piece of animal. That's all O.J. turned out to be. He was able to fake it for a long time. He was able to pretend like a white man, but when it come to his deep emotion toward this woman that he had loved and had children by, he let his real emotions come through. He couldn't control them. But anyway, folks, that's my version. Old John Barrymore and Clark Gable taught Johnny Cochran how to practice law. It's Johnny, he couldn't, it wasn't original thought on his part to do that. He was imitating old Hollywood cases, Hollywood movies. If the hat don't fit, you must quit. If the gloves don't fit, you must quit. I don't know the title of that movie, but you could probably do a Google search and find the title, and then you might be able to find the movie on YouTube or Tubi or somewhere and watch it. It's real interesting to watch John Barrymore. If the hat don't fit, you must quit. See, they ain't much original stuff. That was an original script in Hollywood, but it may have been based on an actual occurrence at one time. But Johnny Cochran, he copied the script of that movie in his trial. If the gloves don't fit, you must quit. But this is your hillbilly historian bringing you the history of stuff that you won't find in your high school and college textbooks. And I try to show you the truth, justice, and the American way, where reason, logic, common sense, integrity, good over evil, those things apply here in the hills of East Tennessee and Appalachia. You have a good day now.